Growing up, I would hear stories about dragons, Loch Ness, Bigfoot, even the abominable snowman, aka Yeti, all the time. But these are creatures from across the globe. What about a cryptid in my own backyard of Connecticut? Although we do get the occasional Bigfoot sighting, not a whole lot. But in 2018, I stumbled across an article from 1888 about a sea serpent sighted in Middletown, about 7 miles downriver from where I am right now. That reminded me of a program from my childhood about the Great New England Sea Serpent, a sea serpent sighted from up and down the New England coast. Subsequent investigations discovered that in 1817, there were so many reports that the Linnean Society of New England formed a task force based in Boston to identify and give a scientific name to the creature. Their efforts failed, but I plan to finish what they started. But before I head out, I first must figure out what the salinity was in Middletown when this sighting happened, which was 1888 on August 8th, which was the neap tide, but also low tide. Now, I'm well aware of the tidal fluctuations of the Connecticut River, but so the salinity can go very far inland. So we have to determine what it is. And I'm using this with a sample I just pulled out of the river in the water bottle and a refractometer. And what I get is a little surprising. It is fresh water, no questions asked. It is practically 0.00. So whatever is under there must be able to handle fresh water. So I'm off to Boston, Massachusetts, where all this took place. And while I'm on my way, I'm going to go over some of the suspects. We of course have the plesiosaur. Ever since its discovery, it's been sort of a go-to explanation for undiscovered marine animals. We of course also have more classic explanations: whales, oarfish, and recently we of course have the Greenland shark, which we know can handle fresh water, as well as currently the thinking it is the Loch Ness monster. But we also have some oddities here. A so-called plesio turtle, a plesiosaur-like animal evolved from turtles. And of course we have a personal favorite of mine, marine dragons. But none of this will be valid until we actually go to where we need to go. I'm outside the Chinatown branch of the Boston Public Library. It is here in 1817, after numerous credible sightings in Cape Ann and New England, that the Linnean Society of New England formed a task force to collect evidence of such a creature. These were all done under sworn statements, and eventually they would find a small deformed snake that they assumed might be a juvenile, and named it Scolapus atlanticus. Turns out it was just a common snake, albeit with tumors. This in turn shocked the credibility of the society and witnesses of such a creature. But the witnesses and sightings would continue by credible people. So I'm off to the place where this all took place, Cape Ann. But while on the train, I go over the key problem with one of the suspects, mainly whales. Most of the people from Cape Ann and Boston come from a maritime tradition. In fact, plenty of the witnesses were whalers themselves, and they would know what whales look like. But there are still other animals that can still be out there. I've made it to Gloucester Harbor in Cape Ann, and it is here in August to September of 1817 that the Great New England Sea Serpent was seen no fewer than 15 times. I recently got a tip from the general store manager who told me about a water shuttle tour, and the captain might know some history about this stuff. But before that, I'm going to enjoy my lunch. And when you're in New England, you can only have one type of lunch: lobster. This is actually a very traditional dish of New England, but also is very common throughout the New England waters. And it is likely something that the sea serpent would have ate. But now on to the ferry ride. Know anything about the Gloucester Sea Serpent?
What about him?
Know anything about it?
Oh. Okay, I can't remember the year, but I
1817.
okay, there you go. Well, you probably know as much as I do. When a fellow by the name of Amos off of 10-Pound Island saw what he saw, and reported it, and it became a big sensation.
Well, I know. I'm doing a research project on it right now.
Sorry.
I'm doing a research project on it. So just like so while I'm here, like you'll probably interview a few people as well. Might know more than I would.
Oh, good. Well, you know, there's a lot of that available locally. Have you been over to the Cape Ann Museum at all, the archives?
I just got here today.
Okay.
It's closed.
That'd be. Did you see the artist's rendition of the serpent that he put up last year?
No. Is that outside or inside?
Outside.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see it today. I mean, it's a phenomenal work by special. He said Jim wrote this. Oh yeah. You wrote this? I did. Yeah.
Wow. When we get to the actual point, can you point out where he saw it?
Oh yeah, it's 10-Pound Island, right over there. Okay, so there were other sightings off the coast of Lockport and so forth. And you know, I'm sure you Googled this because all of the accounts are available online.
Well, I started actually with the Great New England Sea Serpent as a whole, and that led me to focus sort of on Cape Ann.
There are sea serpents today.
Well, that was an interesting conversation. So maybe I have a little bit more knowledge than they do. Maybe I don't. But they have shown me where I need to start looking. 10-Pound Island. With this photo, I can use some stock footage as well as other pictures that I got to use some digital manipulation to try to recreate what should have been seen, and if any of those match what the sightings and witness testimony say. But in the meantime, I should just enjoy the view. But also, while I'm on here, I overhear an additional conversation mentioning some of the fish known to who inhabit the waters. And they mention this. This is good news, because in order to support a large apex predator, you need to have the food base. And striped bass would be more than enough for the food. This will quell some of the disbelievers. But it's also on this ride that proves my main distrust in the plesioturtle hypothesis. Plesioturtles would be evolved from turtles, and all turtles, even ones that live in the sea, lay eggs. They haul themselves back onto land. Now, it has been proven by my former professor Blackburn that live birth can happen multiple times throughout evolutionary history. But somehow I doubt that turtles would have been able to pull it off. Particularly one for a scenario where it's merely a genetic mutation that lengthens the neck vertebrae. And that's just not likely to me. But here's the kicker. Plesiosaurus, we know, gave birth to live young. In fact, many archosaurs gave birth to live young. And if we're going for dragons, well, that definitely keeps them in the options, because it is an archosaur, yes, but it could have evolved to give birth to live young. And also, this ride has also shown me another key advantage that allows air-breathing reptiles to be included as a suspect, where normally in lake monster scenarios they would have to be discounted. You go 2 miles out to sea, you drop off the face of the earth, they never find you again, no matter how hard you look. So what do the photo analysis say that the most likely suspect would be? Let's start with the classic example of oarfish. It's good, but it has one problem. The witnesses describe something swimming dorsal ventrally, and oarfish don't do that. Neither do Greenland sharks. Like all fish, they swim horizontally, and in this photo recreation you can barely even see anything out of the ordinary, so you gotta rule him out. Plesiosaurus is better, but it's not perfect either. The records suggest something of upwards of 100 feet long, and although this is big and definitely out of the ordinary, this isn't 100 feet long. So as much as I like it, we have to count it out too. So that just leaves dragons. And it clearly checks all the boxes. The problem is, it's not known to the fossil record at all. It's merely a hypothetical explanation to explain potential dragon sightings. But it is evolutionarily plausible. The next best option would be to freedive into the Cape Ann itself. I think I can do it. I brought all the necessary equipment I need, and I'm freediving certified. Or so I thought. First, I lost my Vaseline, so I can't properly plug my mask up. Then my boat couldn't inflate, and also my so-called life-proof case for my phone leaks like a sieve. Life-proof, more like a life spoof. I at least can get a sample, and there it is. With a nearly 33 parts per thousand, this is clearly salt water. So whatever's out there has to go from freshwater all the way to salt water. Well, that may have been a bit of a bust, but I have seen enough to know that there are things yet to be discovered, even in a place like Cape Ann. This is clearly a magical place. Who knows what else is under there.